Okay, this morning I'm going to check out the front end on my Jeep Cherokee, and the first thing I want to check on is my ball joints. In order to check on my ball joints, I need to do that with it actually on the ground. So I'm going to use my floor jack right here to raise one side, and I'm only going to raise it enough that I can use my pry bar underneath the tire and actually check the load of my ball joints. Because remember, a ball joint is a ball inside a socket. So what I'm looking for is if there's any play in that. So on these ball joints, I need to unload them. In other words, I can't check it with the car sitting on the ground, and I can't check it with the car up in the air and the wheels hanging, because I can't apply enough force to actually test the ball joints with it up in the air. So what I want to do is I want to jack up one of the front wheels at a time, and then I'm going to use my pry bar. And like I said, I really like this pry bar. It has a special bend in it, and this pry bar is actually designed for checking front end parts. That's why this bend is here. So this is a task purpose tool, even though I can do a lot of other things with it. So I'm going to go down underneath here. I'm going to get the floor jack set and raise it up, and we're going to check some ball joints, and we're going to look very, very closely if I have any movement in the ball joints. So on this particular vehicle, it has two ball joints, an upper and a lower, that we're going to be able to see in plain sight, and we're going to look for any play in them. If I have play in them, or if I have sideward play on just the bottom one, that tells me that we're going to have to replace the ball joints on this front axle. This has a solid front axle in it, so this is not independent suspension per se. It has a solid front axle, even though it has individual coil springs. So this is kind of a hybrid suspension, but all vehicles, especially four-wheel drives that use a solid front axle, whether it's leaf spring or coil spring, are going to have their ball joints tested exactly the same way. So let's go underneath, get the floor jack set up, and check the ball joints. Okay, so I have my floor jack set up, and you see I put it right underneath here. This is part of the solid axle. I'm going to come around here. You can see this arm. I'm not actually jacking on the arm. I'm actually jacking on the tabs that are part of the axle, so that's a good jack point. I could also jack right on the tube, but I actually like that better. And now I'm going to raise the vehicle up a little bit. Now I want to raise the vehicle enough to get my pry bar under, and in this case I also want to get a piece of wood under because I don't want to dig the pry bar into the floor because it's an epoxy floor. So we're going to jack it up enough to slide my 2x4 under, plus just a little bit more. And now I should be able to get my pry bar under. So I got a couple different angles I can pry it. One is from straight ahead, and I'm going to jack this up, and I'm going to look for any movement in my ball joints. And I'm not seeing any. If I thought I was seeing some or wasn't sure, I can actually put my finger right here and compress it, and my finger right here and compress it, because if I have play, I'm going to feel the distance move back and forth. So if you think you see something, use your finger to tell you if you see something. I can also jack it from the side. This puts a side load on my ball joint. Normally this takes someone else to watch while I pry, or have someone else pry while I watch, and I'm putting a side load on the ball joints. And again, I'm looking for any play. If I think I have some play, or if I'm by myself, I can reach my finger around, get into the ball joint area, and feel for play. So I can go through, I can reach, I can go through right here, ball joint area, and feel for play. And I can do the same thing on the lower. I'm not feeling any excessive play on this side, and I'm not feeling any clunking or thudding. So even at 180,000 miles, we still do not have any play in these factory ball joints. This side's good. I'm going to need to repeat the procedure on the other side. Okay, so I got the Jeep up in the air, and with it up in the air, I want to take a look at my suspension linkage and my bushings and my steering linkage. So it is not ideal to test steering linkage this way because it's not in its normal aligned position. That's why I like doing this on the alignment rack. But if I do have it up in the air, what I want to do is I want to look for play in my ball sockets on my tie rod ends and on my pitman arm here. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to grab it and see if I can shake it. Can I get any compression up or down in it? So I don't feel any. The other thing I want to make sure of is I don't have one wheel moving independent of the other. So I'm going to go onto both wheels and push them out and pull them in. If I'm not wide enough to pull them in, I can push them out on this side, push them out on this side. if I hear or feel any clunking, I have worn steering linkage, because what's happening is the wheels are doing this. If I have any play at all, I can't align this vehicle. I cannot align looseness. Alignments are made to correct for worn parts if we can't find the parts that are worn, and they're also there to correct for damage from an impact if we've already replaced all the parts that are bent and then we need to do some fine adjustment. So what I don't want to do is I don't want to take a set of channel locks and start squeezing these, because even good tie rod ends are going to have play. Why? Because they're normally a spring-loaded socket. That's what allows us to move and our suspension to move. So if you see someone taking a set of channel locks and grab stuff and go, oh, that's bad, and oh, that's bad, they're trying to sell parts, not fix the car. Because brand new ones will do the same thing, if not immediately out of the box within a month or so. So this is not a valid test for looking, are they bad? And I've seen people get really big channel locks because I guess they really want to sell a lot of parts. So what we really want to do is play the feel. But again, the angle here has changed because the suspension is down. So the other test I can do that I'll show you when we get back on the ground is actually have someone inside turn the wheel back and forth with the wheels on the ground, and we'll look at all of these pivot points and make sure there's no play in them. So that's a great way to double check it if I don't have an alignment rack to check it on. So now let's move on to my suspension. So in my suspension, I want to look for a couple things. I want to look for anything that's loose. I also want to look for anything that's shiny. This is the underside of the car. It should be filthy. So if I see something shiny, that means there's something rubbing and there's enough play that it's not rubbing there all the time, and therefore that's loose. So again, even though my suspension is not in its ideal condition, I can still do a great visual inspection. So I'm going to get my flashlight, and I'm going to start with my sway bar bushings here at the frame, and I'm going to grab them and see if they have any play. I'm also going to look at them and see if they're cracked. They look pretty good. From there, I'm going to move to my sway bar links. I think that's bad. What do you think? So we can see here the bushing's gone completely. This one's the bushing's mostly gone. On this side, I have mostly gone and completely gone. So I think we need some new sway bar links. These happen to be custom links that are called disconnect links that are made for being able to go off-road. So, gee, they're probably more expensive, but doesn't matter. It needs the bushings. Now, from there, I'm going to move into my 4 arms. I have 2 upper arms and 2 lower arms that control the front end. I also have this right here, which controls the side-to-side movement. So I want to make sure that this is nice and tight at both ends. And I want to look to see what the bushing looks like. Is it cracked? Is it spread out? If I look at these top bushings here, I can see it's evenly spaced and it has a lot of cracks. The cracking in and of itself is not uncommon. What I really want to do is I want to look to see, is it evenly spaced? The cracking shows me it's old. Is it necessarily bad? That's a great question. Do I have any play? Do I have any shiny spots? I'm really not seeing them so much on this side, although that bushing definitely goes in the it's worn. I wouldn't feel bad about recommending it. Now let me look at the other side. If I look at the other side, it's a little harder to see here. I can actually see a shiny spot, and more importantly, I can see where this is actually hitting this side right here. So we can see I'm clearly not centered, and I'm pushed out to the side. And also, if I look on this side, I can see a shiny spot right here where the bushing, where it's pressed into the axle, has actually moved. Okay, so now let's look at the other ends of those bushings. I want to look at my lower ones, but I really can't see them good from this side. And I want to look at my rear bushings. So let's take a second and we'll go back in the back of the vehicle. Look at these. I can kind of shine up to the top and kind of get some glimpse of what they look like. And I'm looking, is it centered in the hole? Is it off to one side if it's wearing it? I can see this side is centered. This side is actually off to the side. It's actually shifted right here in the arm. So this side needs bushings both sides. If I'm doing one side, I'm going to do the other. They're both the same age. I don't just buy right shoes. I like to buy them in pairs. Same thing's true with my suspension. I'm not putting a Band-Aid and only doing one. So when I come back and look at these rear arms have what's called a Heim joint. These are an upgraded rear arm on the lower. On my bottom part here, I can look and I can see on this side, I have some real damage on the bushing. I see some shininess. This side, the bushing's old, but it's splitting, but it's not as bad as my driver's side. So if we take a look right here, we can really see where this bushing's out of position. It's actually torn apart off the center of it. So with that, we have a good idea of what's going on with the suspension. We know we need some sway bar links. We know we need some new bushings for our track arms. And the side arm here is in good shape. Let's put it down and let's recheck our steering linkage with it on the ground under the load of the wheels and turn the wheel back and forth. Okay, so we're going to start the vehicle and we're going to turn the wheel one way and then turn the wheel the other and look at our steering linkage. So go ahead and turn it. Back the other way. Back the other way. Back the other way. Okay, again. 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 And again. Alrighty, that's good. Alright, so it looked like I might have had a little bit of separation on this right side where it looked occasionally like this was going down and coming up as we move back and forth. Remember, these are spring loaded. But when I put my fingers here, I couldn't feel the gap change. So that tells me it's really more of an optical illusion or within the normal movement, and it's not clunking back and forth. So again, even with having the tires on pavement here, turning back and forth with the whole weight of the vehicle, I'm not getting any play in my steering linkage. That means my steering linkage is not the cause of my tire wear. There's no reason to replace it at this point, even though, as you can see, it's not put in yesterday. It's older. But older doesn't mean bad. That's why we test things. So thank you for watching.